Hey everyone, this is Kevin from thechesswebsite.com. Today we're going to be looking at Game 9 from the 2014 World Chess Championship between Magnus Carlsen, the reigning champion, and Vishy Anand, the challenger. Magnus Carlsen up until this point is up a game, and they have 4 games remaining in this series, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Both sides get to play white 2 more times, and we end with Vishy Anand in game number 12 playing the white pieces. So the challenger definitely has an opportunity to overtake his opponents, maybe tie things up, going into some extra chess at the end of that. But in this particular match, we see Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces. If he could actually get a victory, this thing may just be locked up right now with only 3 matches left, being up 2 games. I think that would just be too much for Vishy Anand to come back from. Vishy Anand, if he could pull out a victory here, that would be incredible. Worst case scenario, though, he definitely doesn't want to go anything worse than a draw. So that would be a victory for him, and then he can come back and play white 2 more times. So we'll go ahead and get started. Magnus Carlsen again playing the white pieces. Starts out with that pawn to e4. We've seen it time and time again. Vishy Anand starts with pawn to d4. Magnus Carlsen starts with pawn to e4. And Vishy Anand's really decided to defend 2 different ways. One has been the Sicilian defense, and the other has been the Berlin defense. And in this game, he chose the Berlin defense, so we'll continue with that. Knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5, and knight to f6. Now, if you just remember a couple games ago in game number 7, they played this out to the tune of 122 moves and 6.5 hours, just 2 moves shy of the longest championship game ever. So crazy long game. So interesting to see as they go into this game how they approach it, if they play anything different. For the first few moves, though, they decide to do the exact same stuff. So this is similar to as we looked at in game 7. We see castle on the king side, knight taking capture here on e4, pawn to d4, this knight coming back here, we see the capture, the pawn taking on c6, opening up the door for this queen. Now the pawn's going to take here on e5, forcing the knight to move, and Magnus Carlsen again decides to go ahead and take an exchange off the queens here on d8. After the king recaptures, we see pawn to h3 again. They are just playing the exact same moves. If you watched it, they're playing very, very quickly. It almost seemed like they were playing blitz chess because they were just playing the exact same game they played just a few days ago. So we see king to e8, a knight here to c3, pawn here to h5, and then Magnus Carlsen played the first novelty in the game up into this 11th move. Everything had been the same, and the last time Magnus Carlsen played bishop to f4, and this is the main theoretical line, so both players are very familiar with it. Magnus Carlsen decided to go a different route. He didn't want to play another drawish game, so he wanted to try something a little bit different. He played knight to e2, so small subtlety in the variation that he chose. So he was trying to catch his opponent off guard. Vishy Anand, however, was very prepared for this, and so he played pawn here to b6. And if you kind of remember back to some of our earlier videos, we talked about the fact that Magnus Carlsen actually plays a lot of Berlin defense himself. It's kind of strange to see Vishy Anand playing the defense so much himself, knowing that Magnus Carlsen was so strong. But now that we see even these small novelties that Magnus Carlsen play and Vishy Anand playing so rapidly with that, you can really tell that he has done a lot of preparation in the Berlin defense, and he feels comfortable with it, especially if he's just trying to get a draw, which it can definitely be a very powerful weapon for that. So now we see the rook come over here to d1. Magnus Carlsen could continue if he wanted with the same bishop to f4 as he did last time, but decides to go ahead and immediately control this long d file. When they talked to Magnus Carlsen, he said that he wasn't quite expecting pawn here to b6. The main continuation after knight here to e2 is bishop to f7, so he actually thought quite long after pawn here to b6, playing this rook over here to d1, and from here on, Magnus Carlsen took a lot of time. I don't think he was quite prepared for all of Vishy Anand's moves, and Vishy Anand definitely seemed to be the more prepared player in this variation of the Berlin defense. So we continue with bishop here to a6, and then knight to f4. This particular game had been played before. and it had been a few years ago, but it's definitely at a high level match where some of these players may be familiar with it. In that particular match, we see knight come to d4, and then we see an exchange, and then we see the knight take here on d4, and then after pawn to c5, forcing this knight to move knight over here to f5. I'm sure Magnus Carlsen is familiar with this variation, thought long and hard about it, decided to go ahead and try for a new variation, and instead of giving up any material right away, decided to first play knight to f4, which will allow him to push forward if he wants to with pawn here to e6. So the bishop comes back here to b7, and then we see the pawn push forward here to e6. Now, Magnus Carlsen had a few different options. I really would have been interested to see bishop to d2, and then swing up here to c3, trying to control this long dark square diagonal here. Maybe even not move this pawn. You're the only one with a central pawn, so controlling that seems very, very valuable. And then once you have your bishop here on c3, maybe get your other rook involved into the game, really control these central squares. Decided instead to play pawn here to e6, and it was pretty interesting. If some of you guys get to actually watch the live coverage, Vishy Anand pretty much immediately played bishop here to d6. And so it almost seemed like Magnus Carlsen had thought of this really creative move that Vishy Anand wasn't going to know how to respond to, and Vishy Anand played bishop to d6 right away and was basically telling his opponent, hey, I've looked at this, I know exactly what you're going to do. You're not going to stump me in this situation. So Magnus Carlsen played pawn taking here on f7, and then the king takes, and then we see the knight come up here to a g5 check. And now Vishy Anand had a few different options of how he could have continued. He played king here to f6. Now the knight comes back here, check again, and we kind of repeat some moves. Vishy Anand could either continue with this and just do a three-fold repetition. That's basically when you repeat the same moves 3 times, it's a draw. He could have done that and just taken the draw, or he could have given himself a little bit worse position. He could have moved back here to, let's say, g8 and tried to play on, but really it's tough to play on. There's not much black can really play for, and you definitely don't want to play another 6.5-hour match against Magnus Carlsen when he's just going to wear you out. Instead, you'd rather just take a draw and then prepare yourself for tomorrow when you're playing the white pieces. And that's what he decided to do. So he played a king here to f6. We see the king come back here. They repeat a few moves, and after only 20 moves, we see a draw. So, I mean, I'll be honest, as a spectator, I was hoping to see a little bit more. I don't think Magnus Carlsen was as prepared for this as maybe all of us would have hoped for. Vishy Anand definitely seems the more prepared. In the 20 moves, Vishy Anand played in 15 minutes. That is extremely fast for being down a game with only 4 games left in the World Chess Championship. He was extremely prepared. Magnus Carlsen took 49 minutes, so, 3 times longer than Vishy Anand. He just seemed uncomfortable at the end of it. He just seemed like he was ready to go ahead and take the draw and then to come back tomorrow and fight his black, try to even get a draw. If he could secure a victory, that would pretty much be game over. So, all in all, very, very short game. It was only about an hour long, so not too much even going on, since half the moves they just copied over from game number 7. So definitely looking for something exciting from Vishy Anand tomorrow. He pretty much has to go all out, so if he doesn't come up with something crazy, I'm going to be pretty disappointed in him. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know it was a short one, but hey, you can only commentate on the 20 moves that they give you. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.